$70 to $150 a session. Now, that's not a rumor, not a number that I made up. That's something that a popular $3.3 billion valued company is offering to you if you want to become a group practice owner. Contracted with them. It's on their website. All you have to do is reach out and apply. They've positioned it as you becoming the group practice owner of your dreams, nationwide coverage, without any of the administrative headaches. But here's the truth that's not in the posting. It's a one-way ticket to the group practice danger zone. And I'm going to tell you why you probably want to steer clear. And it's not going to be for the reasons that you think I would. Hey friend, welcome back to Peace and Profit for Therapists. My name is Calvalyn Day. I am your host, a career design strategist for therapists who want to help people and make good money. I have taken the scenic route to this part of my career, and I made a pit stop behind the scenes to support my sister in her practice when she started over 16 years ago. When I came on to help her with operations, I tripled her staff, doubled her revenue, and allowed her to still close her clinical caseload without giving up her paycheck. Because that's what she wanted to do. And now I'm here to help you figure out how to run the business that you want to run. So let's get into it. So in my work, I typically see two types of group practice owners. The kind who always wanted to be a group practice owner and the kind who kind of accidentally fell into it. Both of them are the same in that they have a passion for service. They're usually exceptionally great at clinical work. People usually love working around them, and they have the same desire for impact and income. The people who kind of fell into it tend to go into the business hoping that things will work out, and they oftentimes find themselves in the danger zone. But even some of the people who really had great intention and knew that they wanted to be a group practice owner from the start, they have the same trouble too. Since two separate types of group practice owners end up oftentimes in the same spot, it's not a personal failing, it's a system design. So it makes perfect sense that if you were to see this offer of a group practice being something that you could have without any of the headaches, with built-in clientele just ready to knock down your door, it makes perfect sense that you might be interested in that. But based upon what I know about group practice owners and the way that most group practice models operate, I am not convinced that this is going to be the right fit for most people in the long run. As you can imagine, a company that's valued at $3.3 billion is backed by a lot of tech and a lot of venture capital. And I know this might sound surprising to you, but that doesn't inherently make it a bad thing. But the lack of transparency, in my opinion, does. Because when I see therapists who are signing up for these type of opportunities, they're not doing it because they're lazy. They're not doing it because they don't care about the business side. They're doing it because it seems easier. It seems like it would be more profitable and more effective. And they don't even sometimes know which questions to ask. If someone walk up to you and you're exhausted and they offered you a solution to your problem, saying that we'll take the parts of ownership that you don't really love, like the marketing and the admin side. We'll let you do the thing that you really love to do. We'll let you take care of the clients. We'll let you be a good mentor and supervisor, and we'll let you do all that part, and we'll take the hard part. Most people would say, that sounds pretty good, but you gotta always read that fine print. When they publish their rates as $70 to $150, they're not telling you what that percentage of split is. Are you getting 50-50, 70, is 50% of your referrals $70 and 50% $150? Or is it more like 80% of your referrals are $70 and only a handful are over $100 or $100 and only a handful are $150? Or is it more like 70 or 80% of your referrals are $70 and only a handful are over $100? Because that $70 rate is below the average reimbursement rate for most states in the country. They also aren't telling you what it's going to cost you for them to hand you over all these referrals, because they're certainly not going to do it out of the goodness of their heart. Is that off the top before you get your $70 or from your $70? And if you are a group practice owner and you have to split your $70 with your staff and all your expenses, how is that really helping you? I'm really fortunate that I'm in lots of rooms with all types of therapists and therapists who are at every point along the career journey. Some who've been in practice for 15 or 20 years and have hundreds of clinicians working under them, and some are brand new and still under supervision. And here's what I will tell you. The vast majority of people that I meet who are even interested in a group practice have no desire to have a huge office. Most people are really looking for 5, maybe 10 clinicians to have a very community home kind of team vibe. What most people don't know about that 5 to 10 clinician range is that it is the danger zone for any group practice owner. Why? Because at that number, you're probably still doing the majority of your own billing, your own marketing, your own admin. You maybe have some contractors or a few team members maybe doing a little bit of double duty. Chances are you're still carrying a full caseload or very close to it. You're still getting your hands dirty doing all the day-to-day operations. And 9 times out of 10, you don't have a single system in your practice that makes your life easier. Your calendar might be full, but you're not that profitable. You're booked and busy, but you're not getting paid like it. I see therapists in this danger zone in my Practice Revenue Diagnostic sessions all the time. They reach out to me because they're looking at their numbers and they're trying to figure out how they've got all these clients coming in, but at the end of the month, it feels really tight. They're generating $150,000, $250,000, $300,000 a year. But year over year, there might be a couple $1,000s sitting in the bank at any given time. Money comes in, but it goes out just as fast. And most group practice owners feel like that's their fault, like they have failed at ownership, when the truth is, it's exactly what you would expect. If you started out as a solopreneur, you probably had a profit margin somewhere between 20 and maybe as high as 40%, depending upon your reimbursement rates and what you were actually paying yourself on the hour. You did most of the work by yourself, so you didn't have a lot of people that you had to be responsible for. The money came into your hands, went out to a few bills, and what was left stayed with you. But what most people do not know is that going from a solopreneur to a group practice, your revenue usually increases, but your profit margin generally goes down. Your expenses will go up, whether it's just from payroll, from added liability insurance, or extra administrative support, outfitting a new office. All these different things will add to your bottom line and eat up that small amount of profit that you're actually having. We were stuck for several years around that 3 to 4 clinician mark. Great team members, hard workers, plenty of revenue coming in. But as the owner of the company decided, hey, I want to work a little bit less. I want to not have to go over these claims. I want to not have to answer the phones. I don't want my staff members having to return phone calls and do client consultations. I want to handle that. As she started to look at the way that she wanted things to run, she realized there wasn't a lot of money to pay for those things. And what our practice has done is brought in additional contracts to, pad the budget a little bit more. But most practice owners don't have that. If you're getting $70 for a session, and it's going to probably cost you $10, maybe $20 for expenses, depending upon whether you have a brick and mortar business or not, you're down to $50 already. You're going to have some taxes in there. You're going to have to pay your staff at least 30 or 40 bucks an hour. Where is there going to be some money left for you? I get how tempting it is to have somebody hand you a business in a box and say, here you go, run it. And I'm sure it probably feels pretty good to think of yourself as a group practice owner. But I want you to do the math for your situation. I can't imagine a single situation in which it makes sense for you to financially do this, unless they can pretty much guarantee that the majority of your sessions are coming in over $100 per hour. And since I doubt that that's the case, you know where I stand on that. But if you're saying, Calvalyn, this sounds really great, except for it is hard to run a practice and I need to figure out what the problem is. you are in luck, because this is not just an episode about not signing up with one of these programs that promises you the practice of your dreams. It's also about teaching you how to look at your practice and find the problems so you can fix them. There are 5 common places where most group practice owners really hit a rough patch. And you might have any one of these becoming a problem for you, but here's the good news. They are all fixable problems. First, hiring staff before you have a model that you can replicate. This is a classic one. I see it all the time. You're good at what you do. People are referring to you every day. You've got a great reputation in the community. You don't want to take another client. The natural next step is to hire somebody to serve alongside you. But here's the problem with that. Your clients want the experience of you, not just working specifically with you, but the way that you do things. You probably have what I call a clinical signature, a process that you use that's your kind of secret sauce, how you help your clients. And you want to give your clinicians an opportunity to have their own secret sauce too, but you also want every single person who comes to your office to have a similar experience. The same way you know that you're going to get the exact same thing every time you go to Chick-fil-A, you want to have the same opportunity for your clients to know that no matter who they see in your office, they're going to get a great experience. That way, your brand continues to grow and it doesn't have to be held on your back. The key there is making sure that you have outlined and detailed all the operations and how you want to do things for your practice. What assessments do you want to use? How do you want to answer the phone? What email templates do you want to have? All of those different types of systems are things that I am constantly working with my clients on, whether in a Practice Revenue Diagnostic session or our leverage lab, where I take you through each one of these areas step by step. Having that documented so that it can be replicated is the number one thing you want to do before you start thinking about hiring someone. That way, your training and onboarding process can get right down to business, and you'll know that you can confidently hand your clients over to the new staff. The second thing that I see is not paying attention to your numbers and staying in relationship with insurance companies that do not pay the bills. This is a hard one because some people that I really do respect actually talk a lot about maintaining accessibility. And my opinion on this is I do want to be accessible for clients, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. But I also want to make sure that myself and my staff all have access to a high quality of life as well. It's important that you run your numbers and you know exactly which panels and platforms allow you to be profitable and which ones actually have you in the hole every time you have a session. A lot of group practice owners not only think that they're more accessible by accepting more insurances, but they also think it makes them easier to market. But think of it this way. If you have a session that's only reimbursing you at, say, $52, which, believe it or not, there are some that are that low, and you want to pay your staff $45 an hour, do you want a full book of clients that are actually costing you $20 to $30 a session? Probably not. So do a routine check on these numbers to make sure that you are only in network with the insurance companies that are in your benefit. Pitfall number 3, not raising your rates. I know you've heard me say this before, but every time your expenses go up and you don't raise your rates, you are effectively giving yourself a pay cut. Did your rent go up? Has your payroll taxes gone up? Have you started buying new software? Did you need new hardware? Any of these things that raised the money going out of your practice have to be compensated for by the money coming in. And no, you can't necessarily guarantee a raise on your rates with an insurance company or maybe an EAP company, but you definitely can raise your cash pay rate. This one might surprise you, but number 4 on my list that I see being a problem is not having a vision for the practice. And I see this one most often for clinicians who just kind of fell into group practice ownership, and their idea is that it can just be a family and a team without having a clear vision of what they want it to become. Here's why this really matters. If you just take on clinicians, whether they're 1099 or W-2, and you kind of let them do whatever they want, you end up feeling like you're herding cats. You end up spending way more time managing, not optimizing for people's strengths, not compensating for people's weaknesses, and you maybe hire the wrong people at the wrong time and in the wrong order. Having a great staff member as your first hire is really important. And I'll include a link around this episode to a blog post I wrote about this a while back. Having the right first hire or two can set the stage for the entire trajectory of your practice. But for you to choose the right person, you got to know what you're going for. Do you long term, maybe 5, 10, 15 years down the road, want to sell your practice, or will you just quietly close when you're ready to go out of business? Do you want to always keep at least a small caseload, or are you ready to let it go? Do you want to be one-stop shopping for all mental health needs, or do you want to specialize in one or two things? Whatever your vision is for your practice, that matters. So if you haven't hired yet, be clear about that. It's good to check in every now and again with your staff to make sure that everybody has the same idea. One of the things we always say about our practice is that we want to be the gold standard. We want to make sure that everyone who comes into our office has a similar experience and that our reputation stays intact. That's one of the things that has helped us to be able to get private and public contracts and be easily approved by school boards and city councils to get contracts that will pay us well. But the attitude and the function and the operation of the team all comes from you, the leader. And last, but certainly not least, the challenge that I think is maybe one of the hardest to overcome, but has the best results when you do, is not having the right systems and tools in place. I, as a director of operations, I'm always looking at tools, right? To see there's always new tools coming out and there's always new ways to streamline processes. And anytime you can streamline a process without losing the quality of the experience that a person has, that is a good thing. But I see too many group practice owners, either because they are afraid of letting go. Maybe they're a little bit of a perfectionist, or they're afraid of what the cost may be for them to hire the right person for the job. I see too many holding on to every single piece of operations for too long. You got to have the right infrastructure and support and systems to make sure that your practice can thrive. So thinking about expanding and having more clinicians before you have the right documentations, workflows, delegation, it just ends up multiplying your work. It leaves lots of room for errors. And before you know it, you have a business that other people love working at and you hate on. Not long ago, I was speaking with a clinician who was still working full time, and she had a part-time practice. She had a extended family member helping her with some admin. She had a small team of clinicians, but she had just kind of randomly hired people. Some really were committed to the work and doing a great job. Others were just kind of using the job to fill in their, income, and didn't really have a strong passion for the work. And she said to me something along the lines of, I feel like I should just throw the whole thing away and start over. Now, she did not have to do that. And within about 30 days, she had made about 8 or 10 significant changes that had turned around some profit for her. She'd hired some new people in a couple different things and was already starting to see some positive results. But she was disappointed because she didn't realize that she had just fallen into a classic trap. Every month she could pay her bills. She thought things were fine. But over a period of time, she noticed that there was a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less left every single time she paid them. When we actually ran into the numbers, like when we actually dove deep into the numbers, her small caseload was actually covering the overhead for the entire practice, because what her staff was bringing in wasn't enough for her to break even. So she was quite literally working for nothing. I don't want that for you. I don't want you to get stuck in the group practice owner danger zone. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about, I'm going to say, protecting and advocating for good practice owners online. Because we hear so many horror stories about group practice owners that are taking advantage of people, and they don't offer, the right amount of admin support, and they don't offer the best marketing, and they don't offer great rates, and they don't want to pay you for this and all these different things. And I know that there have got to be some, not great practice owners. We're just going to leave it at that. But I know the majority of them are actually really good people, but they haven't got the business skills to work within the system. And so they fall into the same common traps. When I came on for operations, and I knew one of the goals was working our CEO out of her clinical caseload, we knew that we were going to have overflow. We knew that we needed more staff to fill in those gaps, right? There was going to need to be somebody to take those clients on so that that revenue didn't disappear. But that didn't guarantee her keeping her paycheck. That needed to be something different. Within the first 3 years of me taking the role, we had raised that one contract up over 6 figures, signed a second 6-figure contract, and had multiple 4 and 5-figure contracts to fill in the gaps. And none of us work around the clock. But part of what allowed me to have the time and the capacity to have conversations with thought leaders, with hospital administrators, and C-suite executives is that I couldn't keep answering the phones and responding to emails. So we had to put a person in place, which meant that we had to have a system in place. And all of those are the things that we did. And I want to tell you a personal story that I think highlights the importance of the peace and the profit as well. When my dad had a major cardiac event that ultimately ended up taking his life, I can remember getting the message that we needed to go to the hospital. And immediately I knew that my sister was going to have to cancel all of her sessions for that day and maybe for days to come, because we didn't know what that was going to look like and what we needed to do for my mom and all the family and everything. So because we had already put in place an administrative assistant, it was just an easy email that says, hey, we got to close them out. I just opened up 5 days. I will open up some days in the future. Just let them know we'll reschedule when the time comes. When she was able, when we got things settled, she opened up her calendar again. Somebody else was able to go right in and schedule those. No muss, no fuss. Had we not had that person in place, it would have been making phone calls and sending emails and text messages to get all those done at a time when it was the last thing we wanted or needed to do. I don't know a single person that enjoys putting the systems in place in their practice, but I know that everyone enjoys reaping the benefits and the results. I am quite proud that not a single phone call or email was missed during a time when we were fully disconnected from the practice and able to be fully present with our family. And I think most group practice owners would want to have that be their story as well, but I know a lot of them do not have that. And if you are one of them, I want to invite you to check out a Practice Revenue Diagnostic session. If you don't know what your per session cost is right now, if you're worried that your cash pay rate is too low because you haven't raised it in years, if you'd like to scale back a little bit on your clinical sessions, but you have no idea how you can ever afford it. If you've tried hiring somebody, but it didn't work out, or you're afraid to hire somebody because you've heard so many of the horror stories. All of these are things that we can cover in a one-time Practice Revenue Diagnostic session. Because even though it is easy to fall into the group practice danger zone, there are lots of therapists who are in fact not in the hole. When you have a clear vision, when you know your numbers and you review them often, when you have the systems in place and you have the right tools to be used, you absolutely can have a peaceful and profitable practice. So that is this week's episode. I hope it has been helpful for you. If it has, would you do me a favor? I would love it if you would rate this podcast, leave us a comment, subscribe, and let the podcast guides know that this is the kind of thing you want to hear more about. If you heard something today that kind of sparked an idea for you, share this with a friend and discuss it over a cup of coffee. And if you heard something that reminded you that your practice needs some support, definitely check the description box for some resources to help you get where you need to go. Because remember, peace and profit are not in competition. Even in a group practice, you can have them both.